Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching 72 News, Current Affair with Shoaib Zaidi. This is the Monday show, the special show we had today. Last Monday, we discussed in the program, we call it Queensland Tomorrow. This is the part two of the same program, and we would like to introduce our guest. In last program, we have Professor Grant Pitman, analyst, political analyst, and ultimately a lot of new things people learn from last talk also. And we have experienced Dr. Bernard Malik, a political analyst, a person who really love and enjoying politics and understanding politics and share his ultimate knowledge with the viewers, with us. And today we are very happy to introduce that we have an Australian journalist with us, and that journalist is connecting Australia with most of the other country, but mostly for India. And he's Mr. Satwinder Tinu. So I'd like to thanks to everyone again today, Professor Grant Pitman. Thank you very much for being with us with 72 News. Dr. Bernard Malik, thank you very much, sir, again for your time. And Satwinder Tinu. And the good part is Queensland Tomorrow. This is a special program where we discuss about elections, what going to happen, and how the system does work. This program is proudly supported and sponsored by American College ultimately. And I'd like to thank Mr. Bernard Malik and his college that he always supported these kind of events. Let's start the program and get something from our experts. I would like to go to Professor Pitman first. Professor, in our country, the mostly every seat has a value, single value. During the before starting of the show, we discussed about there was the proportional representation. So could you please explain a little bit what is exactly proportional representation for the in the election?
Yeah, Australia and Queensland many decades ago had what they call first past the post voting, which meant if you had two candidates, if one candidate got more than 50%, they won. The problem then was if you had more than two candidates and the top candidate got less than 50%, then the Australian public believed that they weren't getting the candidate who may have the majority of votes. So they brought in proportional representation voting. So when you've got multiple candidates, you're now asked to put your preferences. So you put down your top candidate as 1, then you put down 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And then at the end of the election, if it's very close between the two top candidates and one doesn't have over 50%, then they look at the preferences of the other candidates and then add it to the preferred candidate that the public had supported or the person from the public had supported. So then when it all adds up, you've then got the preferred candidate based off the majority of votes from each of the candidates. So you then have a preference for who you want if you don't get your candidate in. And then whoever ends up with 50% more from their own personal vote plus the preference vote wins.
Wins. Right.
And that applies in all of Australian states and federal, except for Tasmania.
Except for Tasmania. Any specific reason? Because ultimately you've been in the politics since 30 years.
Yep.
Why do you think that? As long as you mentioned Tasmania, why do you think it's not in the Tasmania?
In Tasmania, they didn't accept that approach and they sought advice from a mathematician or two mathematicians about how was the best to decide who was the best candidate. And it's called the Clark-Hare system. And it's fundamentally proportional representation, but it's based on a mathematical formula.
Right.
And it's the only place in the world that has it. So it's known as the Clark-Hare system voting.
Right. Mr. Malik, coming back to you, thank you very much. In same scenario, Right. So that this concept which we don't have in our system, in our country. I believe in India also they does not have. Pakistan also does not have. Do you think comparing with our country is it is a good option? It's another better way to understand the democratic party properly.
But I think over here you basically have a two-party system.
Right.
At home we have 20-party system. So when you have such a large selection of people there, I think the system we have that has very successfully worked for our country. If you see, India has had very successful democracy. Pakistan has had very successful elections number of times. Bangladesh, the countries we represent,
Yes.
very successful system. So why change what is not broken?
Right. So, but the second part of my question was, do you think it's really having a value for a country like us, or it's solving a different purpose to Australian system?
It's very suitable for Australia and not
Right. So, in this situation, is it possible that sometimes that both candidate has the same situation? And if I ask other participant, if you can mute your side also, and Satwin, Tinuji, if you can mute also your mic, so I can discuss with Mr. Bernard Mali, because look like that there is a sound coming from the sides also. If you can just keep mute, and then we'll. Malik sir, my question is, so in this system, in your own experience, do you think that this proportional system is basically giving additional opportunity for a ruling party or a popular party?
over here also, just like we cut deals in our country, over here they cut deals. So they agree, a party agrees, okay, first, let's say liberals would agree that, we will pass on our preferences to other candidates.
Right.
That's what happened. So I think, to be very fair, whether you have attached one value to a vote or you are trying to make it a number of ways, at the end, as long as it's a fair count, that's what matters.
That's
No
what.
one should feel that it has been an unfair system.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bernard Malik. Mr. Sitwinder Tinu, now I'd like to get your opinion on this. You are a journalist, and ultimately you write in different languages: English, Punjabi, Urdu, Hindi. Your newspaper ultimately produce. Looking because first of all, thank you for being with us on some news. How you're looking this election? So I like to start you from this side. How you're looking from journalists, how you're looking this election?
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for and hello to the viewers. First of all, I think this election is still very open.
Very open.
Yes, and then election like it will be very close. Like you discussed with the points with the Dr. Malik first that the preferences, vote preferences. I think this in this election the vote preferences will play major role
Major.
because in I think in more than 30% seats, like it's very close margin. So over there, this will play the major role in it.
Okay. So this time it will play the major role, or every election this preferences play a major role?
So good question. Like what happens in the election? Election, when you see, if we see the previous results, this with the preferences, vote preference, made the critical role, play the critical role in there. So, what happens when the candidate is like, say, somebody is like 50.1,
Right.
yeah, or 49.9, then they go to preferences. And then, even though the person who is ahead 0.2 margin, but he will get the preferences. He or she might get the preferences from other person.
Right.
So the person who was number 2, he can win the election.
Right.
So
So
it happens before.
yeah. So I understand, Professor. Mr. Tinu, he mentioned that preferences is really playing an important role, and you also mentioned Bernard Malik also. My question is, this election, does preferences concept will change the results, or in every election it has the same value? Professor,
No, it's a good question, that one, because the minor parties have been well and truly strengthened in Queensland in the last 3 to 5 years.
Right.
So in the regional areas, the country areas, the minor parties' preferences will become critical. There are about 6 electorates which have under 1% of majority. In other words, you're talking about 100 to 200 votes.
Right.
And if the preferences flow in a particular direction, then that could change government, literally.
Right.
There's a seat called Townsville, which is 0.4%. It's held by Labor at the present time, and 0.4% would probably be about 100 people would have to change their mind or vote in a different preferential area. And if they do that, they see Townsville as the litmus seat. If it changes hands, they believe that the Conservatives will win, or more of the minor parties will win.
Right.
So it's a seat that's very, very close in numbers. So the preferences, if they change, and the Conservatives have now given their preferences not to Labor as the first party or second party, they've actually put them at the bottom of the list. So how the preferences are decided between parties becomes critical as well.
Right. That's really nice. Mr. Malik, yeah. I like to come to you also, and just adding my question. Yeah, okay. What you like to add, then I'll put my question. Yeah.
I wanted to bring in some local flavor in this. The seat from where Madam Pinky Singh is contesting.
Yeah.
And you met her, and we all know her, and we support her.
Yeah.
That seat has rarely been won by Liberals, and she's running on Liberal ticket.
Right.
But Liberals always win on primary preferences. So they always carry the primary vote. But as Professor Pitman said, it depends how the preferences flow, they lose.
Right. So, Mr. Malik, coming back to the same preferences, 4% margin, 100 votes, and our topic is mostly that does migrants have any impact on the election? So, you think that that could be a possibility, that if migrants think and rethink, and then they can change the as Mr. Professor already mentioned, small change can make a really big change. So, do you think that immigrants can make an impact on these using the preferences?
Absolutely. I think currently the difference is only of 9 seats.
9 seats.
Yeah, 9 seats. And if you take from where these 9 seats come, and some are really, really marginal, where a couple of 100 votes or 100 votes will swing the pendulum.
Right.
In that case, if they can get out to the community, rope them in, they would win.
They would.
The seats that where we live in, Sunnybank seat, highly Chinese. Seats like that, you take example after example, where you will see the parties going in and meeting the community, trying to see if they can get the vote.
Yeah.
This time, have been given to local immigrant candidates.
Right.
2 seats have been given to people of Indian origin.
Yeah.
1 Chinese origin.
Right.
And so on. So that shows that parties like back home, where there is a Hindu majority vote, Hindu majority candidate, there is a Shia majority vote, they put up a Shia majority candidate. Same thing they're doing here.
It's starting here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Tinu, this is the concept which we almost saw most of the time in our system. Now this time we saw that Mr. Malik already mentioned the Chinese area. They would like to bring the Chinese candidate, Asian area, and the Punjabis area. They would like to slowly the fingerprints and the roots are going deep and deep. Do you think that this is a good way for the immigrant communities to involve in politics and ultimately make some change in an election? Because if you're serving long time, you can be a part of the system. Do you think that it's a good time for immigrants to be more actively participate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the election, like the politics is the biggest pillar. If you want to be succeeded, okay, if you want to get your voice to be listened,
Yeah,
at the higher level, then politics is the best. Okay.
right,
What's happening here in Australia? Australia is a land of migrants.
right,
Australia is the land of immigrants. So every year, like around 20 to 30,000 people getting the citizenships.
citizenship. Yes,
Yeah. So what's happening? But that means 20 to 30,000 more voters are coming
are coming.
through. Okay. Like if we talk to Malik, he was talking regarding the seat of the immigrants uh, there, because a lot of Greeks over there, Italians there, living in new farm area, like new step. What will happen? Well, like I think first time, like any immigrant is coming over there as a candidate, I think it will be good for her as well. And you said that for the Punjabis, like, or any other race, like, we don't talk just about the Punjabis or
Yeah,
any any.
right, right. Mr. Tinu has yes, Mr. Tinu, yes,
Sorry, it was.
yeah,
So what is happening? Like with this, we have to actively part of it. Okay.
right,
If we see Punjabis are every Punjabi is politician. If they're sitting over there, you know that if they're sitting, the five Punjabis are sitting somewhere,
yeah,
they start talking regarding the politics.
right, right,
What's happening? They talk about the politics, but back home.
right. Ah, right.
Here, when they're moving here, they need to be actively part of this.
Right.
Until they won't be the part of the system, they can't raise a voice.
Right. So, Professor, it's a really good point, good observation. There is two things. Number one, Mr. Tino also mentioned that every year there are thousands of migrants are coming. Let's include the last election result and then coming election. So ultimately, there is an add up of few thousands in the migrant immigrants, in the number of immigrants. The first question would be, do you think that that number, which is not be calculated or counted as any pro party, that could make some changes unexpectedly? Those people like you, those are engaged in the making some forecast analysis, they can make some unexpected results?
I think there is the possibility of that. I was looking at the Queensland statistics for the migrants coming here, and we roughly are getting about 30,000 coming to Queensland every year.
Right.
Majority of them are from New Zealand,
Right.
unless they have dual citizenship or get Australian citizenship.
Right.
Generally, the New Zealanders don't vote here.
Right.
Interesting enough, outside of the British people who settle here, the next major group are the Indians.
Right.
And then the Filipinos, and then the Chinese. And generally here in Australia, they live, I'll use a term we use, in concaves. In other words, in they settle in one area.
Right.
For example, one of the areas I've been advising on is a suburb of Dara. And Dara has a lot of Vietnamese, Chinese people in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it votes almost 80% Labor. So of the 5,000 people there, you've got 4,000 voting Labor.
Right.
And for the candidate who's Conservative there to change that, we'll have to have policies that support what ethnic people want. And if they don't, then the difficulty that the Conservative candidate or another candidate would have is they vote on block.
Right.
So you're correct. If there's a concave of Indian people living in an area and they vote according to whichever is their preference, then they can change an election. Yes.
They can change election. Coming back to the Dara results, so I already recorded in my notebook that Mr. Pitman predicted that in Dara it's going to be Labour. Any specific reason, Mr. Pitman, for this?
Dara is certainly Chinese, predominantly Vietnamese area, and it was a migrant suburb that was next door to where the migrants came in back in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And the migrants there vote Labor because Labor has multicultural policies, and they're very supportive of migrant jobs.
Right.
Although that's true, the Conservatives do, but Labor seems to be more emphasising that. Right. So I think the jobs issue or the work opportunities, they tend to put multicultural facilities in those areas, and multicultural facilities covers language, learning the law, educational opportunities, the social benefits for migrants visiting. So that generally is a pretty good winner. And the last reason why Dara is popular is because it's a big soccer.
Big soccer, I know.
It's soccer.
Yeah, thank you. Before going for a break, I'd like to put a question to Mr. Malik. Mr. Malik, Mr. Tino, he just mentioned, I think it's a very, 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 very good point, but it need to be explained that why, like you already mentioned, that our people mostly, I don't know about the Chinese, but I know Indian, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lankan, when they move from their country, they almost always discuss about their politics, where, to be honestly, he's right that we don't have much influence until unless we've been there. What could be done? Number one, why it is there? Because we don't have any system where we can show our interest. We don't have a program like this. Or do you think that it's a very slow process and that's why it will come after some time?
Your question has actually multiple angles to it. When it comes to immigrants, and when we say immigrants, I basically mean people of South Asian origin. Yeah. We have actually made impact. There are 2 federal MPs of South Asian origin, Dev Sharma and Gurdeep Singh.
Right.
So we already have 2 MPs, and they both happen to be from LNP, and both very highly accomplished individuals.
Right.
Having said that, though immigrants are seen as labor vote.
Right.
And I think we discussed in our last issue too with you that even though we are considered labor vote, our value system is liberal.
Right.
Because we tend to have a very strict conservative value system. And to what was your question on?
Yeah, I was that once they are coming, they are still mostly discussing and thinking and planning about the India, Pakistan politics, not Australia. However, they are still a part of Australia. They do the vote, but they did not think much about it.
I think it's a really, really interesting angle to it, and you want it on purpose. The reason being, when we come here, first few years, we are also stuck in roti, kapda, or makan struggle.
Right.
We're trying to see how we can find a job. Once we have a job, we try to find how we can improve our lifestyle. We buy a house. That's God's honest truth. So first few years, the first generation hardly gets involved with anything in the community. It's for our kids. And you can see not only our kids, the younger generation, Australian kids have no interest in politics.
Right.
Absolutely no interest in politics.
That's
Secondly, we come from countries where politics is played at every level,
right.
including home.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we take very keen interest in our politics back home.
Right.
Left here. Half the time we don't even know who our MP is.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's where a program like yours should really get out and get people interested.
Right. Right. Right.
From the last program, we got tremendous feedback from our friends and people across to say that that was very informative. And when you're trying to be pioneer, it takes a little while for it to establish.
Right. 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 Right.
I talk to the channel to you for taking this initiative, and I think slowly in this election you would be able to get some people's attention. And next time when federal election comes, you will have a lot of support and lot of
Right. Right. Thank you. So before going to the break, I like to leave a question for Mr. Tino. Tino, Mr. Banan Malik mentioned that in our country the politics are differently looked, and so my question will be with you when I come back after the break. Why do you think the concept which we are having in our country, lot of discussion, lot of tactics, and lot of public meetings, corner meetings, why it's not there? Do you think that it's they don't need it, this one? We will discuss about after the break. So we are going for a break. Let's come back after the break.
American College, located in the heart of Woolloongabba, is a nationally accredited registered training organisation by the Australian Skills Quality Authority. Our motivations entail competency-based trainings, tapping vocational outcomes.
I think the education is real. It's really represent the vocational education sector in Australia. It's one-to-one feedback, and that sort of experience I haven't really felt anywhere else.
American College takes a client-centred approach as the welfare of our students takes an utmost precedence. Founded on the motto, empowering aspiring minds, every thought, every word, and every effort of American College revolves around this dictum.
American College is the place to be, and I'm glad you have chosen American College as your institution of learning. Welcome.
Our national alliance with Alpha Crucis College and Australian Catholic University and the international alliance with Global Open University ensure that our aspiring graduates have seamless access to higher education programs in Australia and worldwide. American College is the place to learn varied vocations so that upon completion the student can immediately start earning, keep his or her head high, free from fear of financial insecurities, and participate in the society as a responsible and free citizen of the nation.
Hi, my name is Kasha Lovens, and I'm the Customer Service Manager here at American College.
My name is Chirata Rodrigo. I'm the Training and Development Officer at American College. American College is a registered training organization here in Australia.
We offer trade courses in automotive. For the automotive sector, you gain skills by enrolling in
Certificate 3 in Light Vehicle Mechanical Technology
Certificate 4 Automotive Mechanical Diagnosis
and Diploma of Automotive Technology. For more information, please call us on 33917599 or you can email us at admin@americancollege.edu.au.
We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Okay, welcome back after the break. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Tinu, I was before the break. I just mentioned that why do you think that the concept mostly migrant in China also the politics style is same. We have a lot of corner meeting, public gatherings, lot of not the lunch. I will discuss these lunch with Dr. Malik and Pitman. But from you, I like to know the culture which we have. We did not find the culture here. Why do you think that that does not require, or why do you think, Mr. Tino?
What's happening if we, good question, that one. If you see the difference, what is happening over there or what is happening here, over there, it's quite simple. What they want to influence you. Okay?
Right.
Like when they come and talk to you closely, here they do the door knocking as well, and then they come and then send the emails and send the flyers to you. They wait at the streets. Here, like over there, like with a lot of manipulating of the system as well.
Right.
In like other countries, what politicians do, they just why hook and crook? They just try to influence people.
Right.
Okay, here, okay, they know 10 people here, they go and talk to them. Here, I think, and moreover, people got more time over there. Okay, if one person is going to job,
right,
in most of the areas, one person is working and then 5 are at home.
Right.
So people got more time to talk and to visit. Okay, what's happening in like how many people there go to the marriage here?
Yeah,
maybe hardly 50. What's happening over there? 200, 300. Sometimes like most of the villages is coming over there.
Right.
All the people are there.
Right.
That's like people got more time in as well, and then they like everybody, each and everyone know each other, and then most of them get the influence. Shoaib ji,
Yeah.
Shoaib knows him. Shoaib, then I get him. Dr. Malik knows this person, so get Dr. Malik, and use his influence as well. That's what happening.
That's what happening. Professor Grant, just trying to connect the same thing but differently. In Christian book also, in Muslim book also, it's mentioned that if you like to show the difference, your good quality, so don't discuss about other, enhance your own skills, which is, I believe, in our system. However, we have these guidelines, but in our system, when the politics comes, we start to find out the fault and blames. Not discuss much about myself, but discussing more about the other candidate. In Australian system, they discuss most of the time, they discuss about themselves. Do you think this is the concept from the same manners books that you have to enhance and you show what you can do? Don't discuss about this, because we did not find a lot of scandals before the election when it's coming back to there. Is it normal? Or do you think that in the beginning, in the past, it was there that the scandals are coming before the election?
I think Dr. Malik should answer that one.
No, this Professor Grant.
The political parties have tightened up dramatically about their candidates, and they've got to make extensive disclosures about their past, including criminal histories, any controversial issues, investigations by anti-corruption agencies, anything about their own personal business arrangements. It's very extensive. However, even with all that disclosure, there is an issue gets through here or there. There was a candidate up north who made some comments about women on a YouTube or a Facebook many years ago. Somebody obviously was muckraking, trawling through the system and found it, and has put it up as that he's anti-women. So it's more difficult now as a candidate, unless your personal lives are very wholesome, to not be labelled for your past history.
Right.
I would say that Australia, and Dr. Malik may have a view on this, is I think Australia's gone more presidential.
Right.
Where the leader of the party or the opposition leader or even the head of the minor parties usually represents the parties. And so we tend to look at the leader and the policy more than the candidates now.
Right.
There are exceptions to the rule, but I think we've probably gone a little bit more presidential. But if a candidate is problematic, the party usually works out what's the best option, and usually they withdraw, and the election in that area has one candidate less to look at.
I like to stick with you. So it means that the journalists like Mr. Tinu or like the media people like us, do you think that they still don't like to follow very deeply the candidates, especially the rising stars, and trying to find out some stories there? They don't like to follow them. They don't like to do any work for them. Or do you think that still they are doing some work? Maybe they will find something.
The Americans call it muckraking.
Okay.
And in Australia, the journalists like to get headlines, and they will muckrake if they get some incentive or some advice about it. So they will target candidates. But they're more prone now to target the leader. For example, Deb Fleckington, who's the opposition leader, they're targeting her over that she's indicated that no jobs will go in the public service. But when she was a minister to the previous Conservative Premier Campbell Newman, she was one of the major people who supported the removal of 14,000 public servants. So that sort of approach to targeting the candidates can be also over their political history as well as their personal history.
Right. Now I like to have opinion from Mr. Malik also. The same, starting the same question. Okay, that why we are not having before election some kind of breaking news, scandals, stories, and going deep and deep. Why do you think, Mr. Malik, or is it happening? But because maybe they all, as he already mentioned, that they already go from a tight scrutiny, a lot of investigation in the beginning is done, so nothing is left for the scandals. What do you think, Mr. Malik?
Both the things. It's too early to call it off that there won't be coming out before the election. You could get some scandals up, you never know. Right. Yes, I like to concur what Professor Pitman said, that scrutiny is so stringent that possibly 1 or 2% of the candidates make it.
Right.
And after you go through so much security, it's hard to find something that would come out.
Right.
To his point, yes, these are presidential form types of elections now in every country. They're leader-driven. See, every party has a brand now. We know what LNP stands for. We know what National stands for. We know what First Nation stands for. We know what Carter Party stands for. We know what Green stands for, right? And what Labour stands for. What happens, it depends. If you can get a charismatic person like Mr. Zaidi to run the panel, then everybody comes to watch it.
Yeah.
So if you see what happened during the last federal election, did we even, wildest dream think Liberals could come back? No. And then all of a sudden, this Scott Morrison, who was very charismatic, people voted for him.
Right.
So all the fan hitters will go with the leader.
Right.
Many times, you're happy to go with the leader, the integrity of leader and the charisma of leader, than at times the party policies.
Right. Okay, now because you mentioned something good word for me, but still I don't like to change my question. It's a difficult one. And Mr. Malik, Professor Grant already mentioned that some of the candidate, many years before, he just put some comment on YouTube and he been asked for this one. The Dr. Bernard Malik, he always has interest on the politics. He always has a friends in the politics. He always think about the politics. Is there any possibility Mr. Malik would be in a politics and can be answered about whatever things you have mentioned on these kind of programs or private gatherings? Two things, huh?
I would rather, be a guy who speculates than be speculated about. Generally, what happens, they say when you don't know who your grandfather was dating, join politics.
Right.
They will dig out anything they can to do the scandal.
Right.
It happens more so in America than here. Here, people are too good. Look at us, Grant. You got great people, very simple people. They don't do any crimes. And
Right.
from my conversations with Professor Pitman, he says, "Oh, we are convicts." The issue is they are not convicts; they were convicts.
Right.
They are like saints. So you hardly find big scandals in this country.
Right.
That's so much more interesting in US, and it depends who is dealing there. You could put some scandals on President Trump's, and it look like a virtue. He'll just laugh it off and say fake news, and 90% of the people will believe and vote for him.
Right. So Mr. Malik does not have any plan to be a part of politics. We like to record this statement, so maybe someday it will help us. Now going back to Professor Grant.
I may say something. In our countries, there are no scandals.
Yeah.
You can't join politics unless you have committed a big fraud.
Right. You can't
join politics. Either they want to hide their black money, or they want to make more money.
Right.
So ethics doesn't play much role in our countries. In fact, if you're too ethical, you can't even get elected there.
Right. Professor Grant, Dr. Malik mentioned something differently for the politics in our system, that until and unless you don't have something big, you cannot be a part of politics. But there is one thing good in India, which is different in Australia. I like to have your opinion. Dual nationality in India, they are very strict about the dual nationality in parliaments. In our system also, we have this one. What is your opinion in dual national? And I like you to just share about the local Australian system, how the dual nationality system works for our viewers. Then I'll go to the Tinu.
Not sure how to answer that one. I'm not sure on that one. I'll have to have a think.
I can rephrase it. In state election, does the dual national can participate? And in federal election also can participate or not?
No. As a candidate at the federal level, you can only be an Australian citizenship. Now, they're still talking about perhaps holding a referendum to look at the dual citizenship issue. Right. Certainly, Europe, you can be dual citizenship and still be in that parliamentary options of being elected. But certainly not the federal government at the moment. The High Court's ruled in favour of the Constitution. State government, I believe there's a little bit more flexibility with the dual citizenship.
So you can still be a part of the state parliament with the dual citizenship.
To my understanding, the Constitution at state government hasn't got a specific clause on the Australian citizenship requirement. But I might be corrected on that, but to my understanding, that's the state at the present time. The federal government, there's a growing interest in perhaps changing the Constitution. It has been for about 5-6 years now, because we had some very good politicians who had not necessarily renounced because they didn't know it, but as a child had come across and belonged to the Italian government or the Netherlands government, and they were excellent politicians, but because of the Australian Constitution, the High Court ruled that they couldn't be a member of Parliament.
Right. I'd like to have the Tinu opinion. Mr. Tinu, dual national, ultimately, I'd like you to just share about the Indians' permission that you can be in Parliament with the dual national or not. And what about in Australia? You're Australian. Do you think that it's a good way that you can be, you can participate having your own nationality of your back home country?
Yes. See what's happening in India. If you can't be dual national over there, like you can, like if you want to be the candidate of any party of independent, you should be Indian citizen over there.
Right.
That is the only thing.
Right.
Another thing should be over 25 years old and
Right. Right.
other laws over there. But coming to Australia, like dual citizens, okay, if somebody want to with election, okay, yes, I think they allow as long as somebody is Australian citizen.
Right.
Here I wanted to mention something. I was trying to cover a story regarding the election.
Right.
I was talking to some young generation,
Yeah.
even some kids over there in the park. It was in the park,
Yeah.
somewhere outside, and some elderly people over there.
Right.
So I was talking to just a kid. Okay, we say that like only a person can vote when he's or she is 18. But I was talking to that question, just a teenager. I think that girl, she was 14 or something. And I said, I was asking regarding the election, okay, this thing, like they were saying that we can give this free. There was some parties holding, hanging over there. And then 14-year-old teenager, she's just a kid. And then she said, okay, it's not possible. If we get this free, then our country will be served.
Right.
She said, we are happy to buy these kind of things
Right.
as long as we got our jobs.
Right.
So this is the difference of the education. The kind of education is the mother of everything. Okay, as long as we are educating, and then see these things come. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who will be tomorrow politicians? Like these kids, we always say that these kids are our future. Even in our country, we say that our kids are our future. But what circumstances, like they're saying in that, are we providing enough infrastructure to them?
Right.
That's the main question. Here, you get everything.
Yes. 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 Yes.
That's
Yes.
why people come to this country.
Right. 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 Yeah. It's really very good point, Mr. Tinu. Mr. Malik. Now Tinu mentioned that there is a big difference of the education system and all these things. Now we don't have a lot of stories there, but here last week I was having a story doing the follow up from our potential premier, Miss Deb, and she was answered. She was asked from the journalist about the dinner and lunch, the fundraising lunch, and they were making a story from these lunches. How you are looking these lunch and dinners for the fundraising, and how much these lunch and dinner financially important for the parties? Mr. Malik, you are mute.
I said you want me to get in trouble.
No. I will go with the same question to Professor Grant also. So I give you a little bit easy.
Okay, that's not easy. To your previous point, I want to say there is a difference between what we have in Pakistan and what we have here.
Yeah.
In Pakistan, politics is considered as your birthright, and they don't retire. It's a career politicians. Over here, you would see they serve 10 years, 5 years, and they retire and they go and find other jobs in private sector.
Right.
If you look at Nawaz Sharif Sahab, he would not retire. He will either die in office or he will die trying to get into the office. Right. And then when, unfortunately, when he serves his time and is gone from this planet, his daughter would become the next prime minister.
Yes.
His brother is prime minister. Chief minister.
Yeah.
India too. It happened with the Indira Gandhi, then Rajiv Gandhi. Now Rahul Gandhi is trying his luck. This is what happens in our country. We're greedy. Let's admit it. We're very, very greedy. And how many times you can find our principles are compromised.
Right.
A Congress guy, when he knows now Congress doesn't have future for next 10 years, they will go and join BJP.
Right.
Two opposite ends of ideologies.
Right.
Over here, you will not find very often a liberal guy joining Labour.
Labor.
It's very rare.
Right. Right. Right.
In our places, it is lifestyle. It happens.
Right.
So
Right.
when it comes to your interesting question about funding,
Yeah.
yes, all the elections require money. Every election requires money. And then if the elections are too close, like they're calling this time,
Yeah.
you require more money. When margin, as Professor Pitman said, is very small. I was looking at, there are 3 extremely marginal seats where margin is only 1%.
1%.
And 1.2%. It's like 100, less than 100 votes could swing the bat. And for your viewers, voting is compulsory here. It's not optional. Like in India, or in Pakistan, 30% or 20% will make you win. So you go and target only 20% of the votes and you win.
Right.
Over here, every vote gets counted, and if you miss a vote, you are fined.
Right.
So elections and funding is extremely critical. And if you look at elections fought in US, presidential elections go up to $1 billion, not millions, billions of dollars. Over here too. So the only way they can raise some money is they go and find the party faithfuls, people who strongly believe in ideology, want to support some good candidates. So they do fundraisers.
Right.
And you would see last week there was a major fundraiser by Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, and Deputy Leader of the Opposition, and the hall was full. There were hundreds of people that were there.
Yeah. So, Mr. Professor Grant, ultimately, Dr. Bernard Malik, he knows the values of this one. These fundraising, I have few questions with you. First question, that these fundraising, do you really find that because there is not election preparation like in our country or in our system, you have a lot of corner meeting, you are spending people, calling the people, arranging food, making a lot of things. Just trying to understand for our viewers why they need funds for election.
Having been involved in local politics, there's a cost for purchasing your call flutes or your posters. There's a cost for buying your baseball cap with your brand name on top, for your T-shirt, for electioneering. There's a cost for delivering leaflets to every house. There's a cost if you want to get the billboard on the side of the road. And just the to $50,000 for the local candidate.
It's a really good information, yeah.
Then you've got the party faithful. I belong to a party. I pay $80 a year. Most of the money goes to the state political headquarters. And of course, they've got to run the state campaign, which covers all the additional costs. So you're talking about millions of dollars, if not tens of millions of dollars, just for a state campaign.
Right.
The Labor Party has access to union dues. And usually most of the unions in Australia belong to the Labor Party union machinery. So they pay out millions of dollars. The Conservatives generally get their money from the business sector.
Right.
One of the business sectors who have caused problems in recent times are the developers.
Right.
Queensland, they passed legislation last year to say that developers could not give money to political parties. So the Conservatives have had major problems fundraising. You can have dinners which you pay your monies to, which is legitimate. But even at the dinner we went to with the Prime Minister on Tuesday, the Deb Fleckington was accused of meeting with developers.
Yes.
It has since been found not to be correct, that she accepted any money from them, but there was the perception. And of course, there was a perception that most of the people who went to the dinner with the Prime Minister and Deb Fleckington were developers. I'm not familiar, and I'm certainly there, I'm not a developer. I own my house, and that's about as far as I go with land and house.
Yeah.
But it appeared as though the majority of the people there were business people, but generally not developers because of the legislation here.
Right, right.
It's a vexed problem worldwide, and it'll be a problem forever about people wanting some benefit as a result of supporting political parties.
Right.
But that's the nature of politics.
Perfectly. There is another nature I'd like to know from you. Mr. Malik also mentioned that if in our system it's normal, but here nature is completely different. That if a candidate from the Liberal, he lost from the Liberal, and then he can join the Labour in our system, not here. What is the reason? Do you think because they have the oath from their party that if they lost or they leave the party, they are not going to come back in front of them and in their opposition party, something like that?
There is a lot of movement between parties and candidates in my local area.
Right.
The candidate who's running for One Nation was an ex-Liberal candidate who won a seat out near Dr. Bernard's area at 21 years of age. And he worked as a checkout operator at Woolworths. And he's come back as a One Nation. There's an ex-Labor opposition leader called Mark Latham, who runs for One Nation down in New South Wales.
Right, right.
But sometimes it depends on the party constitution whether or not they will accept him or not.
Right.
And, so it's an internal decision in the party machinery, how they operate. And then if they do move across, usually it's because they're high profile and the party they're moving to believes that they can maximise their populist view of life or their populist personality or whatever.
Right, right. So it means there is a possibility, but very rare and depend on the constitution. That's only the holder for them. Mr. Tinu, we almost at the last of our program. And Mr. Tinu, now coming back to the immigrants. And being a journalist, you are covering a lot of stories. What exactly do you think from a media side, media can do to include or involve the immigrants in this local politics?
That's a very good question. See, media is a fourth pillar of democracy. Media can play vast role in any campaign.
Right.
See, like people now, they just want to talk, they want to listen. What's happening nowadays? People are getting the information through social media.
Right.
So what happens when we are talking over there, so we are getting like Dr. Malik, he's a king of education.
Right.
So, and he got a vast knowledge of politics as well.
Yeah.
Like Professor Pitman.
Yeah.
So that's when people listen these kind of stories, okay, they get the idea. Okay. So which way, media can make the way.
Right.
Media, nowadays, not a lot of votes, it's very low margin, and then media can play big role in there.
Big role. Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Malik. Coming back to you, looking that the transfer from one party to another party, and then role of the media. So what do you think that the role of the media, because this is my last question and then we are going to close out, and I have agenda for the next program also, which I like to disclose after this. What do you suggest that from media side, how migrants, because the reason is in next program, we would like to discuss with Mr. Malik, especially the 3-4 seat where we have the less margin. What are these seats? Who is the winner? Who is the next competitor? We like to discuss a little bit more, particularly for these seats. But before going to this next program, we like to know from you, what do you think about especially immigrants' role. And again, my reference always be US, Canada, and UK engagement of Chinese, Indo-Pak migrants in the politics. What you will be suggesting to the media, role of the media?
I think role of media is very, very important. Media is actually conscious keeper of the society. When you get honest, fair journalism, they guard our values. Unfortunately, in the countries we come from, media gets bought out. And
Right.
regardless of what the ruling party does, they baptize it and then they make it look like it's sanctified, holy cow.
So there is a something called baptizing also.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So in here, I think the politics is pretty ethical.
Right.
People are though people are forgiving, but they are not forgiving of scandals and they are not forgiving of frauds.
Right.
Fraud. But here, interestingly, in my electorate where we are sitting today in Wollongabba, you got Jackie Trad.
Right.
Jackie Trad is currently very tainted, but she's still running and not sure if she will make it this time. Pretty close. Otherwise, she had a very liberal margin of winning here.
Right.
Media goes out and finds the stories, and many times the stories are credible. If stories are credible, media plays a positive role. If stories are not credible, media plays. At the end of the day, we are all humans, and it depends who is talking about what.
Right.
Media can make it, the glass is half full or glass is half empty.
Right. Thank you, Thank you very much, Mr. Dr. Bernard. Thank you, Professor Grant. Thank you, Mr. Tino. And ultimately, as Dr. Bernard mentioned, the media, if they are the story. So what is our story of the next week? The story of next week is, we would like to know from Dr. Bernard Malik, what are these seats where the competition is very close? And we would like to know, baptizing from the Professor Grant, that in political system, there is something called baptizing politically? And in addition to that, I'd like to have a question to Mr. Professor Grant also, that once he has a lot of knowledge about the politics, does he anytime thinks to be a part or be in parliament or be in the politics, not at the back end? So these stories we would like to bring next program, and ultimately Tino will be with us, and Tino, we will going to learn from the Tino that what happening in his constitution, where he's doing. I find out that he was meeting one of the new LNP candidate and discussing a lot of and make a story on his achievements. He's a new LNP candidate from the north side. So these stories we are going to, and as Mr. Malik mentioned, if you have a good stories, you may have a good time. So I think today we have some discussion, lovely discussion and lovely guest. Thanks to Mr. Tino, thanks Professor Grant, and thanks to Dr. Bernard Malik. And again, we can't do anything without thanking 72 News. Thank you, 72 News, for your support. It's over from Shoaib Zaidi. We will see you next Monday, and the program will be tomorrow, Queensland. And we'll see. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.